Okay, how's it everyone? My name is Shepherd and I'm originally from Bulawayo in Zimbabwe. I'm 31, currently working as a youth intern, one of the churches here in Joburg. And I'm here to share my story. So we'd gone to Italy for 6 weeks for a bit of a holiday and like a mission trip type vibe. And we slept over at this place in Rome. It was a church and they've got like a B&B going on. And the next morning we wake up to go have breakfast, but we thought let's pack the car first. And the family I was with had a little boy. He was about 6, maybe 5 at the time. And he's little, so we're trying to pack the car, we're trying to get the day going. So I decided I'm going to take his stuff and I'm going to pack it for him. So I took his toys and he had a toy gun as well. So I took that, probably had it with me somewhere, took the bags, we packed the car and we walked across the road to go have breakfast at one of the cafes. And within minutes of us getting into the cafe, there's police like just outside the place where we've left. They're knocking on the door, they're going crazy, and they're shouting out like, get out, get out. And so the dad of the family I'd gone with, he goes across and he says, sorry, I've got the key. And they shout at him, they're like, no dude, stand back. And so we wait for like another 2 minutes trying to see like who's gonna come out of this place. Are they gonna get anyone? And he eventually goes out again and he says, I've got the key to the place if you guys need to get in. And they're like, oh, okay, come. They took the key, they open up, they go through the place, they search the place, they come out and they don't find anyone. And they're like, so like, what's the problem? They explain to the dad what the issue was. Turns out that there's a lady upstairs that had seen me with a toy gun, this little boy's toy gun, and thought that I was holding this family hostage and I was getting them to pack up the car and things like that. So that was my welcome to Europe. That was the first time I landed in Europe and crazy stuff. My story. I'm gonna have to rewind a little bit to my parentals. So my dad and his brothers sort of had a band when they grew up, and so they had this little band going on. My dad played the saxophone, and then one of his brothers, which is my uncle, got saved under some missionaries. This is back in Zim when they came across, and they trained him in the ministry to be a pastor, basically bishop, and he started a church. But he didn't have a worship team, and so what he did was he got his brothers to come, learn a couple of gospel songs, and that's how they built the church. His brothers weren't saved, they didn't know the Lord, but that's how the church was started. And then eventually life took them their separate ways. My dad moved down to Bulawayo, which is where I was born, and a couple of years later they had another church plant in Bulawayo. So that's the church I was born into almost, and I grew up going to that church. It was characterized by these long services. You know it's long when you have to pack a lunch for the kids and halfway through the day the kids are all sent out with their lunch to go eat and then play after that. That's the type of service I went to when I was little. And that's the church we went to as a family. And then my sister, she visited the Baptist church, local Baptist church back home, and she heard about this kids program that was going on, and she thought, my little brother would love this. She asked me if I was keen. I had nothing to do over the holidays. I said I was keen. Asked my mom if I could go. She said, as long as your sister can take you, it's awesome. And so, I went to that church because of the children's program that they were doing at the time. And then they invited us to come to church on the Sunday. And I thought, well, this will be interesting. Can I go, Mom? And she's like, as long as your sister can take you, you can go. So I went to this church on the Sunday, and it completely blew me away because they had a program for children. And church didn't last as long. It wasn't an all-day thing. And for me, that was really cool. So they had an area just for the children. They had a message just for us. They really caught our attention, engaged with us, and I thought this was really cool. And so I asked if I could come to this church a little bit more often, and I did. So I was a bit back and forth between my parents' church and then the Baptist church that I ended up being a part of later on in life. And I just started going to that church. So they taught me Bible stories from young. I was in a Christian influenced home as well. So knew the stuff, knew prayer, you knew Jesus, you knew Bible stories. That's what I grew up with. And as you go into teenagehood, you sort of leave Sunday school and you go into the teenage ministry. And yeah, I was involved in that as well. And there came a point when now you can't sit in the Sunday school lessons or services because you're too old for that. You have to sit in big church. And at this point, I'd been coming to church every Sunday. I was the Sunday sort of a Christian. And I was in my teens, about 14 at the time. Yeah, I was listening to the pastor preaching, fell asleep through one of the services, woke back up, he's still talking. I'm like, what's this dude going on about? And then he caught my attention when he said these words. He said, coming to church doesn't make you a Christian. And when he said those words, I thought, wait, what? I had been coming to church all this time. I thought I was a Christian. I thought everything was okay between God and myself because I ticked the box. I came to church. I prayed before I ate. I prayed before I went to bed. I lived my life during the week doing other things, but as long as I did that, I thought I was A-okay with God. And obviously that's not right. And I was listening to him. I remember that Sunday morning listening to him. He said these words. He said, just if you lived in a garage, would that make you a car? And I'm sitting there thinking, of course not. No, it doesn't make you a car. And he said, well, coming to church doesn't make you a Christian. And he explained the gospel. He delivered the gospel in that moment. And he spoke about how my relationship with God has been broken because of sin, and how I needed to be restored back to the Father, and how that relationship between me and the Father needs to be restored. It's not about coming to church, doing these practices, but it's about having a relationship with God. And it's at that moment that I realized my relationship with God is not good because of the sin in my life. During the week, I would go and live my own life and be involved in whatever sin I was involved in at the time. And I would come to church on a Sunday, raise my hands, sing worship songs, be that perfect Sunday Christian, and yet my relationship with God was completely messed up. And I didn't really understand the gospel until he explained it to me that day. Yeah, so I decided to give my life to the Lord that day and surrender my life and say to him, I actually want to have a relationship with you, God. I want to have my relationship with you restored. I want to be forgiven of my sin. And from that point on, I started walking with the Lord. But I did fall many times. I did get into lots of trouble, lots of mischief. Basically had moments in my walk when I withdrew from the Father and came back from this relationship that I had with him. And it's only until a couple of years ago actually when I started thinking about the implications of the gospel and what it means to actually give my life to the Lord. And I think from that moment on, when I started thinking deeply what it means for me that Christ came and died for me, that God would send his only son to come and die for me, when I started thinking about the gravity of that love and that action and that grace that he showed me, I began to think maybe I should really shift my life in a totally different direction and commit it completely to him. And this is what's led me to this point now. There's been moments where I've fallen and I have sinned, but it's cool to know that because of what Christ has done, I can always come back to God and ask Him to forgive me and ask Him to restore me, and He does that every day. So yeah, that's my story. Yeah, I just want to encourage anyone that doesn't believe or doesn't follow Christ or doesn't have a relationship with God, because my life I felt like I was living like a double life. I felt like during the week I was a completely different person to who I was on Sundays, and I was really just tired of this fake life. It felt like it wasn't the real me, and in all honesty, there wasn't much joy. There was lots of guilt, lots of disappointment in myself, in how awful I was, and how on a Sunday I'm trying to be, a good person. And I really just want to encourage anyone that is maybe seeking, maybe in the same situation, that give Christianity a try. And once you do that, you get the genuineness of a relationship that will never ever fail you. And I think that's what I was after. When I look back, I look at how I tried to be someone else that I wasn't during the week, or I actually was that person during the week, but I wasn't really on a Sunday, and I tried to be someone that I was not, until I got into a relationship with God, until I gave Him a chance to love on me and show me His grace and His love. And I just encourage you to do the same thing, because once you do that, you feel you're in a genuine relationship that will never fail you, and He begins to change you to become the person He wants you to be, not even the awful person or the good person you thought you were, but He really transforms you and He changes you into the person He wants you to be. And so I encourage you to try Christianity and give Him a chance to love on you. Yeah, that's my story, and I hope it's been helpful for you. If it was, please do like, share, and subscribe. I just want to thank Unpacking Grace for giving me this opportunity to share my story.